Do you believe the Eagles are still a top 3 team in the NFL?
Yes, absolutely.
You want Philly food?
Yeah, let's do it.
As the team stands, obviously we have a lot of guys that are here on this team that didn't necessarily have to do anything last year. But now they're going to be asked to either be starters or key contributors. I want you to kind of look through who we have right now, and who do you think is going to be the most important to have that big step to really take on more responsibility for this Eagles team? Is there a player that you look at that says, he needs to step it up for the Eagles this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's another good question. You look at in drafts past, and Howie's said this quite a number of times, but hey, we're drafting for the future, we're drafting for depth. It's always a great place to be in when you're drafting players that don't necessarily have to start or perform from day one. And so, I mean, some of the guys that come up first and foremost for me are really the Georgia boys. Like, I mean, Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. I don't know if I could separate which one needs to have the better season. I think Jordan Davis was doing a pretty good job, especially, just in terms of the run support on the defense and just kind of filling a hole. I mean, he's a big dude, and you really are just saying, all right, you got to double team him, so our linebackers are going to get a little bit more free. And I think you saw that, but you want to see him take that next step. He's probably going to have to play more plays this year. I know he got injured, but coming off of that and saying, you know what, here's year 2, you need to make a big impact now. And so he might be one of the guys that you really need to see improvement in production from. But then I think that goes hand in hand with Nakobe Dean. And I know lots of people have said it in the comments on my shows, and I'm sure on yours, we discussed it, but Nakobe Dean was drafted for a reason, and he was, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I love, if you go look at all of his interviews, post-draft, even pre-draft, really, he's saying, like, I don't care where I get drafted. Like, I've got something to prove. But it almost helped even more that he slid down a little bit, because I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. Like I say, he wants to set the league on fire and show them, you know what, I am a top linebacker. So I would say, if I'm going to have to choose between those, I'm going to go with Nakobe Dean, because he is the guy. You've obviously seen how he signed so far from the linebacker position. So there's nothing that says, maybe Nakobe Dean's not going to be a starter. He's not going to be that type of player. So it's like, you know what, it's your time to shine. And he's going to have to make up a big hole, because obviously we lost our 2 starters at linebacker, and Howie doesn't value that position great anyway. And I mean that more so, like, I don't think we're going to go out and draft a linebacker, maybe one of the 7th round picks, but with the lack of picks, like we've mentioned, and the fact that there's other holes that you can fill, it's kind of like, hey, you're our choice. We're not really a backup option for Nakobe Dean. So I would say he needs to make the biggest improvement, have a monster year to get this team to that next level.
And then there's no relation, right? No, that Josh Davis, Jordan Davis.
There's not.
There's no relation. All right, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I like to break news on here, so you never know, right? But no,
you never know.
Yeah,
he's a much bigger dude than I am. So.
that's my girl's favorite player. She loves Jordan Davis with all her heart. But I do too. I love those boys. I think that they do definitely need to step it up. Definitely, and not that they were terrible. Obviously, we saw flashes in their first year, but they definitely need to be those cogs. They need to be the guys that we can build around. And I'll go deeper. I'll say, off of his injury, because I forgot that he was even a part of this team, to be honest. Last year, I was forgetting that he was on this team. Derek Barnett, man, I want to see Barnett come back and do something. And realistically, best case scenario with a Derek Barnett is that he proves he can be a rotational guy. I'm not looking for him to go out there and be a star, or, if he is, then that's awesome. But just go out there, be a rotational guy, prove that we can sign you for another small, kind of short to long term, maybe 2 or 3 years more, and just give us that depth. Because once we lose Brandon Graham, even if we draft somebody, we're going to take a hit at that depth spot. So I think that he's going to prove important if he is able to stay healthy, obviously, and give us quality snaps just to be able to spell some of these guys. So I know that's a guy that a lot of people don't really bring up, so I just wanted to bring him up. And
he's kind of lost in the shuffle, to be honest. Yeah, you bring up a good point. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle. You do forget. It's like, oh yeah, he is still on the team. He got injured, not really made an impact, but that's a good point. Yeah, he's providing that rotational play for sure.
And yeah, you hope that he does. Say, I just don't make all those mistakes, right? Don't get a penalty every 5 minutes. That's all I need from you.
Yeah.
And you've been productive-ish. Like, he's done well. It's just the penalties and stupid mistakes that he makes that just kind of negates it all. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what you remember him by, but it is what it is. So, I mean, we've talked about the players that are on this team. We've talked about the players that, came to this team that possibly may come to this team in the draft. But I want to talk about this team right now. All right. As the NFL stands, as this team stands, do you believe the Eagles are still a top 3 team in the NFL?
Yes, absolutely. I will clarify that more, but I don't think I need to. But yes, I mean, there's some bias because Eagles fan and you just love this team, but I think we are, and I think that it's almost the best case scenario in my opinion, because the offense will not lose a step. If anything, it's going to get better. If maybe Bijan Robinson, there's a possibility. So I'm holding out hope. But if that happens, it's going to be even better. But you're seeing that. Jeffrey Lurie had mentioned in a press conference, I think Nick Sirianni mentioned it, the Howie Roseman, like this team is usually being built through the offense. And Lurie came right out and just said the offense is more important than the defense. And, you could argue that. That's a whole nother story that we could get into. But it's either way, if that's their mantra, then you're seeing it now of like, yeah, they're solidifying the offense even more so. And, the offense can dictate a lot of things. You're just going to have to make sure to have help for that defense because obviously, and we all know you can't win in this league without a balance. You have to have a defense to some extent, whether you believe offense is more important than defense or not, you still have to play really on all 3 sides of the ball, even special teams. So I think that, yes, this is a top 3 team. I really believe that the defense is being underestimated. I think next year we'll be in for more of a surprise. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to be at the same level of last year because it's hard to replace, especially when you've lost players, you've got a new defensive coordinator, schemes are changing. There may be some growing pains. So as far as maybe the first half of the season, maybe you don't get that same type of production. But I do think that this defense will get better as the season goes along. And I think that the production will be there maybe even more than people think because from all that I've read, and I know there's lots of articles and content creators and everybody talking about it, but like Desai likes to change things up. And so I'm excited to see how he maybe, confuses opposing quarterbacks because, I think Jonathan Gannon, let's be honest, even almost admitted that he got too stuck in like a one size fits all and might have cost the Super Bowl. Again, I'm not going to go there. That's off on a tangent, but I just like the creativity. And so maybe we get some more turnovers, that may fit along the side of, because Nick Sirianni said, we brought in Desai because he fits our scheme. He fits what I want to do. And so he obviously has a vision for this team to play complementary football. And what does that mean? I mean, perhaps, hey, give us more possessions. The more possession we have on offense means the more points we score, the better likelihood that we win. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I think the defense is being underestimated. So I say absolutely. They are a top 3 team, especially you look at the NFC. I know you got to make the argument for like the NFL as a whole, but the NFC is probably the weaker of the 2 conferences. And so I'm excited to see it. I think that big things are in store. Yes, there's a difficulty of schedule because you've got that type of schedule coming off of the year like we had. But I'm not concerned at all. I think that we're going to make the playoffs. We're going to be in a race for the division, I think, with the Cowboys. I think it'll be a two-team race, but I think we're for sure going to make the playoffs. And then, as all of us have seen, all bets are kind of off. Once you make the playoffs, that's the goal, and you could see anything happen at that point. But I believe as of right now, we are a top 3 team because I also believe in Howie, like we mentioned at the top, that there's so much more time for him to make even more moves so that wherever you fall, the B+, the A- for the free, he could get it to an A+. So yes, I'm going to say top 3 team for sure. What about you though? I mean, you on board with that? Not quite. I'm curious to know.
I think NFC, I think that you're 100% sure. I think that we are probably the best team in the NFC right now. Top 3, I definitely think so. It's obviously you put Kansas City up there. I'll give them that just because obviously they beat us. So for right now, they're better than us. But I don't know who else you'd put ahead of us. I mean, I've seen some people put San Fran ahead of us, but they don't really have a quarterback. Yes, they have a good defense, but they just paid like $9 billion to a 30-year-old that can't stop the run. So, I mean, I don't think that they really moved the meter for me. If anything, it maybe moved down a little bit. So I think the Eagles are a top 2 team in this league right now. And like you said, I think it can only get better. I think we know where we are lacking and where we can improve. And one word that I'm so excited to say, at second halves and after games is adjustments, right? I feel like I have not said that in like 4 or 5 years. So, it's going to be nice to see this defense actually making some adjustments, doing some different things. So I agree. I think people don't know what we're going to be next year. They know that we're good. We have talent. They may know individual players and stuff, but we don't even really know what we're going to be next year. We could be looking at a workhorse running back. We haven't had that since Shady? I mean, so it could be a totally different offense for even us. So I do agree with you. I think that a lot of teams are probably underestimating what we can be. And I don't think a lot of teams necessarily know what we are yet. So I think we are a top 2 team, and I think we're going to get even better. I can't wait to give that A+, Josh. I'm telling you, I really can't wait.
Yes, I know it.
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Fly, Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man Saul Jackson like Deshaun, hunting like Randall. Season here, early time to do them in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.